Power. It shapes our decisions, relationships, and even our destiny. But what if you could learn the timeless strategies that rulers, thinkers, and leaders have used throughout history to gain and maintain power? Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power is a masterpiece, a guide to understanding human nature, mastering influence, and navigating the complex dynamics of authority. In this video, we'll dive into all 48 laws, breaking each one down with deep explanations and real-world examples. Whether you seek to rise in your career, strengthen your relationships, or defend yourself against manipulation, this is your roadmap. Let's unlock the secrets of power. The first law sets the tone for everything that follows. Never outshine the master. This law warns us that making those above you feel overshadowed, insecure, or inferior can lead to jealousy and, ultimately, your downfall. Instead, always make your superiors feel smarter, more capable, and in control, even if you're the one driving the success. Let's look at the story of Nicolas Fouquet, the finance minister of France under King Louis XIV. Fouquet wanted to impress the king, so he threw a lavish party at his estate, complete with extravagant decorations and fine entertainment. While the king attended, he wasn't impressed, he was offended. Fouquet's display of wealth and power made Louis XIV feel overshadowed. Shortly after, Fouquet was arrested and spent the rest of his life in prison. Why? He outshone the master. Always keep your ambition subtle and your achievements modest when dealing with those in power. Let them shine, and they'll reward your loyalty. The second law challenges a common assumption. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Friends can become entitled or take advantage of your trust. Enemies, on the other hand, often have more to prove and can become surprisingly loyal allies. Take Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals. Instead of filling his cabinet with allies, Lincoln appointed former political enemies who had opposed him. Why? He understood that these rivals would work harder to prove their value and loyalty because they had something to gain. By leveraging their skills and motivations, Lincoln united a divided country during one of its most turbulent times. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment. Be strategic. A former enemy can often be more valuable than a complacent friend. Law 3 tells us, conceal your intentions. If people know your plans, they can sabotage them or use the information to their advantage. Deception, or at least ambiguity, is your ally. Consider the story of Otto von Bismarck, the Prussian statesman. Bismarck was a master of concealing his political goals, often sending conflicting signals to other European powers. While they were distracted trying to decipher his intentions, he quietly strengthened Prussia's position, eventually uniting Germany under its banner. Keep people guessing. If no one knows your true goals, they can't work against you. Sometimes silence is your strongest weapon. Always say less than necessary teaches us that over-explaining can reveal weaknesses, intentions, or unnecessary information. In silence, there is mystery, and mystery creates power. Think of Steve Jobs. Known for his calculated silence in negotiations and product launches, Jobs often left his competitors and audiences eager to know more. His minimal communication created a sense of intrigue and authority that made Apple's innovations seem even more groundbreaking. Speak less. Listen more. Let others reveal themselves while you maintain control. Your reputation is your most valuable asset. So much depends on reputation. The fifth law. Guard it with your life reminds us that once your reputation is tarnished, your influence diminishes. Julius Caesar's reputation as a brilliant general was carefully cultivated and fiercely defended. Even when rivals spread rumors about his ambition, Caesar's public image as a man of the people helped him secure power. Protect your reputation at all costs. It's easier to defend than to rebuild. Attention is currency in the game of power. Court attention at all costs advises us to stay visible and relevant. Whether through charisma, controversy, or innovation, you must ensure you're always in the spotlight. P.T. Barnum, the famous showman, understood this well. Known for his outlandish marketing stunts, Barnum made sure his name and his shows were always the talk of the town. Whether people loved or hated him, they couldn't stop talking about him, and that kept his business thriving. Visibility equals power. Stay in the spotlight, but avoid overexposure. Why do the work yourself when others can do it for you? Let others do the work for you, but always take the credit. Isn't about laziness. It's about delegation and leveraging the skills of others. Thomas Edison is often credited with inventing the light bulb, but much of the work was done by his team of researchers. Edison's genius was in managing their efforts and ensuring his name was synonymous with their breakthroughs. Delegate effectively and position yourself as the face of success. Make other people come to you emphasizes control. When you lure others into your environment, you dictate the terms of interaction. During World War II, General Erwin Rommel used bait tactics to lure Allied forces into traps, gaining strategic advantages. By making his enemies move first, he controlled the battlefield. Stay in control by making others come to you. Actions speak louder than words. Win through your actions, never through argument, highlights that debating rarely changes minds, but demonstrating results is undeniable. Napoleon Bonaparte's decisive military victories silenced his critics far more effectively than any speech or argument could. Don't waste time arguing. Prove your point through results. Negativity is contagious. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky warns us to distance ourselves from those who bring drama, failure, or misfortune into our lives. Throughout history, kings and leaders have distanced themselves from advisors who consistently brought bad news or failed ventures, understanding that association with failure breeds mistrust. Surround yourself with positivity and competence. Learn to keep people dependent on you. The more others rely on you for their success, the more indispensable you become, and power flows naturally to those who are irreplaceable. Never give away too much knowledge or independence to others, or they may no longer need you. Take Louis XIV of France, also known as the Sun King. He made himself the center of his court, where every noble depended on his favor for their influence and wealth. By keeping them dependent on him, Louis ensured his power remained unchallenged. Make your skills, resources, or influence so essential that others can't function without you. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. A single act of generosity or honesty can win over even the most skeptical opponent. When used strategically, it lowers their defenses and gains their trust. During his rise to power, Otto von Bismarck often used calculated acts of honesty to win the trust of rivals, only to later use that trust to outmaneuver them politically. These small gestures helped him consolidate power while others let their guard down. Use honesty sparingly and strategically. It's a tool, not a virtue. People are more likely to help you when they see how it benefits them. When asking for help, appeal to self-interest, never to mercy or gratitude. Appeals to altruism rarely succeed, but showing someone what's in it for them is a powerful motivator. During the Renaissance, Niccolo Machiavelli advised leaders to frame their requests as mutually beneficial agreements rather than appeals for goodwill. His tactics were often cold, but undeniably effective. Frame your requests around how helping you benefits the other person. Pose as a friend. Work as a spy teaches us that information is power. By blending in, building trust, and observing carefully, you can gather the knowledge needed to gain an advantage. During the American Revolution, Nathan Hale, a soldier for the Continental Army, disguised himself as a loyalist to spy on British forces. Although his mission ended tragically, his approach highlights the importance of observation and infiltration in the pursuit of power. Knowledge is the foundation of power. Gather it quietly and use it wisely. When you leave an enemy partially defeated, they'll regroup and strike back. Crush your enemy totally warns us to leave no room for retaliation. Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul was absolute. By eliminating his enemies entirely, he prevented uprisings and consolidated his rule, paving the way for his rise as dictator of Rome. Mercy is often a weakness in the game of power. Eliminate threats entirely to ensure they don't return. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Reminds us that scarcity creates value. When you're always available, others may take you for granted. By strategically withdrawing, you create intrigue and increase your perceived importance. Napoleon Bonaparte's self-imposed exile after his defeat initially fueled his mystique, leading many to see him as a romanticized hero rather than a failed leader. His absence made the public long for his return. Don't overstay your welcome. Absence can be a powerful tool to command respect. Predictability breeds complacency. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability keeps others on edge, making it harder for them to counter your moves. Vladimir Putin's unpredictable political strategies often leave opponents guessing, giving him a strategic edge in negotiations and conflicts. His unpredictability creates uncertainty that tilts the balance of power in his favor. Unpredictability keeps you in control and others on the defensive. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself, warns against isolation. While it may seem like a safe move, cutting yourself off from others leaves you vulnerable to ignorance and surprise attacks. The fall of the French monarchy during the Revolution highlights this principle. King Louis XVI isolated himself in the palace at Versailles, losing touch with the struggles of his people, which ultimately led to his downfall. Stay connected to those around you to maintain awareness and influence. Not everyone reacts the same way to offense. Know who you're dealing with reminds us to assess people's temperament before taking action. John D. Rockefeller, the oil magnate, carefully studied his competitors before making moves against them. By knowing who could retaliate and who wouldn't, he avoided unnecessary conflicts and maintained his dominance. Understand the strengths and weaknesses of others before making moves against them. Do not commit to anyone teaches us to remain independent. Committing too deeply to a person or cause limits your flexibility and makes you predictable. Queen Elizabeth I mastered this law by refusing to marry, using her status as an unattached monarch to keep foreign suitors and rival nations in suspense. Her independence ensured that her decisions were always in her best interest. Stay flexible. Independence gives you the power to act freely and strategically. Play a sucker to catch a sucker teaches us to mask our intelligence when dealing with others. Appearing less capable than you are disarms opponents, making them underestimate you while revealing their own plans. Consider the story of Albert Einstein. Early in his career, Einstein often played the role of the absent-minded professor, downplaying his intellect to avoid intimidating peers and critics. This approach allowed him to work without interference and gain support for his theories. By seeming less capable, you lower others' defenses, giving you the upper hand when it matters most. Use the surrender tactic teaches us that sometimes the best way to win is to concede. By surrendering in the short term, you can buy time, gain sympathy, or regroup for a stronger comeback. During the Chinese Han Dynasty, the general Han Xin surrendered to a rival warlord rather than face defeat. This move allowed him to infiltrate the rival's ranks, eventually turning the tables and reclaiming his position of power. Surrender isn't weakness, It's a calculated strategy to reposition yourself for victory. Concentrate your forces reminds us that scattered efforts lead to mediocrity. By focusing your resources, time, and energy on a single goal or area, you maximize your chances of success. John D. Rockefeller concentrated his efforts on controlling the oil industry rather than diversifying prematurely. By focusing on one sector, he built Standard Oil into one of the most powerful companies of its time. Focus creates strength. Avoid spreading yourself too thin. Play the perfect courtier teaches us the art of navigating social hierarchies. By being tactful, charming, and discreet, you can win favor without appearing threatening. Richelieu, the French cardinal, mastered the art of court politics under King Louis XIII. Through careful flattery and strategic alliances, he became the most influential figure in France without ever challenging the king directly. Charm and tact can often achieve what brute force cannot. Identity is fluid, and recreating yourself allows you to adapt to new opportunities and challenges. By consciously shaping your image, you take control of how others perceive you. David Bowie was a master of reinvention. From Ziggy Stardust to the Thin White Duke, he constantly redefined himself, staying relevant and influential across decades of music and culture. Don't let others define you. Control your narrative and reinvent yourself as needed. Keep your hands clean reminds us to protect our reputation by avoiding direct involvement in messy situations. Let others take the blame while you maintain a pristine image. Napoleon Bonaparte often delegated unpopular decisions to his generals, ensuring that any backlash fell on them, while he retained the loyalty of his troops and subjects. Distance yourself from controversy to protect your reputation. People crave belief systems that give their lives meaning. Play on people's need to believe by creating a vision that inspires loyalty and devotion. Steve Jobs created a near cult-like following around Apple, presenting the brand as more than technology. It was a lifestyle, a movement. This emotional connection made customers fiercely loyal. Tap into people's need for purpose to build influence and loyalty. Interaction with boldness teaches us that hesitation breeds doubt, while bold moves inspire confidence and respect. Even if you fail, acting decisively often leaves a lasting impression. Alexander the Great's bold decision to cross the Hellespont and invade Persia demonstrated fearless leadership, rallying his troops and intimidating his enemies. Fortune favors the bold. Take decisive action to assert your dominance. Plan all the way to the end warns us against short-sighted thinking. By anticipating obstacles and visualizing outcomes, you reduce the likelihood of failure. Julius Caesar's careful planning of his campaigns ensured not only military victories, but also political dominance in Rome. His foresight allowed him to maintain control even after returning from battle. Think long-term. A well-executed plan leaves no room for surprises. Powerful individuals make their success look easy. Make your accomplishments seem effortless teaches us to hide the hard work behind the scenes, creating an aura of natural talent and brilliance. Michelangelo famously downplayed the effort behind his masterpieces, perpetuating the myth of his divine genius while concealing the grueling labor and preparation involved. Appear effortless to inspire admiration and avoid envy. Control the options is about guiding people's decisions by limiting their choices. When you frame the options, others feel like they have control, even when the outcome is what you wanted all along. During World War II, Winston Churchill used this strategy in negotiations with allies, presenting plans in a way that made them feel collaborative, while subtly steering them toward Britain's objectives. By controlling the choices, you control the outcomes. Always set the stage to your advantage. People crave escape and fantasy. Play to people's fantasies teaches us to create visions that captivate and inspire, rather than confronting harsh realities. P.T. Barnum, the master showman, knew that spectacle and illusion drew crowds. His attractions weren't always factual, but they played to people's imaginations, making his shows wildly successful. Reality is dull. Fantasy is magnetic. Offer dreams, and people will follow you. Everyone has a vulnerability, a weakness or obsession you can exploit. Discover Each Man's Thumbscrew is about identifying these points to gain leverage. J. Edgar Hoover, the first director of the FBI, was infamous for gathering personal information on politicians and public figures. By knowing their secrets, he ensured they couldn't challenge his authority. Knowledge of others' weaknesses is power. Use it wisely, but sparingly. Be royal in your own fashion emphasizes the importance of self-respect and confidence. By carrying yourself with dignity, you command respect and set a high standard for how others treat you. Napoleon Bonaparte, though of humble origins, always projected the aura of a ruler. His confidence and presence made others believe in his destiny as emperor, even before he claimed the title. Act as though you are worthy of power, and others will believe it. Master the art of timing teaches us that acting too soon or too late can undermine success. Waiting for the right moment maximizes impact and influence. Julius Caesar's decision to cross the Rubicon was perfectly timed. By waiting until his enemies were vulnerable, he seized the moment to launch his rise to power. Patience and precision are key. Strike only when the time is right. Sometimes the best response to an insult or slight is no response at all. Disdain things you cannot have reminds us that indifference often weakens the power of our opponents. Elizabeth I of England famously ignored suitors who sought her hand for political gain. By remaining aloof, she maintained control over her court and her independence. By refusing to acknowledge provocations, you maintain the upper hand. Powerful visuals captivate and persuade. Create compelling spectacles is about using dramatic displays to command attention and shape perceptions. Adolf Hitler's Nuremberg rallies were meticulously designed spectacles of unity and strength, creating an emotional connection with his audience and solidifying his power. Adolf Hitler's Nuremberg rallies were meticulously designed spectacles of unity and strength, creating an emotional connection with his audience and solidifying his power. A well-crafted spectacle speaks louder than words. Use visuals to leave a lasting impression. Think as you like, but behave like others teaches us that blending in is often the safest route to influence. By conforming outwardly, you avoid unnecessary resistance while quietly advancing your goals. Galileo Galilei, though a revolutionary thinker, presented his theories in ways that aligned with the Church's expectations, ensuring his ideas weren't immediately dismissed or censored. Outward conformity can protect you while your true intentions remain hidden. Chaos can create opportunity. Stir up waters to catch fish is about using confusion and disorder to gain an advantage while others are distracted. During the Battle of Trafalgar, Admiral Horatio Nelson used unorthodox tactics to disrupt the enemy fleet, creating confusion that allowed him to claim victory. In times of chaos, stay calm and seize the opportunities that arise. Nothing comes without a cost. Despise the free lunch reminds us to be wary of gifts and favors that may come with hidden strings attached. During the Cold War, countries offering aid often used it as leverage for political influence. Leaders who accepted without scrutiny often found themselves in compromising positions. Value independence and recognize that free often comes with a price. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes warns against following in the footsteps of someone too influential or beloved. Comparisons are inevitable, and it's difficult to live up to the legacy of a predecessor. Instead, carve your own path and establish a unique identity. Alexander the Great avoided directly emulating his father, King Philip II, despite inheriting his empire. Instead, he pursued his own grand conquests, expanding into Persia and beyond, solidifying his legacy as a world conqueror. Don't live in someone else's shadow. Forge a new path to create your own legacy. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter emphasizes the importance of removing key influencers or leaders who hold groups together. Once they're gone, the group often falls into disarray. During the American Civil War, Union forces focused on capturing Confederate generals like Robert E. Lee, understanding that their removal would destabilize the Southern war effort. Target the source of influence, and the rest will follow. Work on the hearts and minds of others teaches us that persuasion and emotional connection are more effective than coercion. Winning loyalty through empathy and understanding creates long-term allies. Nelson Mandela's leadership was rooted in forgiveness and reconciliation. By appealing to the hearts and minds of both Black and white South Africans, he united a divided nation and built a foundation for peace. Influence is more sustainable when it comes from respect and connection rather than fear. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect involves reflecting back the actions or attitudes of others. This tactic neutralizes aggression by confusing or unsettling your opponent. In negotiations, Mahatma Gandhi mirrored British colonial authorities' stubbornness by refusing to compromise on India's independence. His passive resistance frustrated his opponents while rallying his supporters. Mirroring can disarm aggression and create confusion, giving you the upper hand. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once advises gradual transformation. Radical or sudden reforms often provoke backlash and resistance. Franklin D. Roosevelt introduced the New Deal during the Great Depression, implementing reforms step by step. By avoiding sweeping changes all at once, he maintained public support and stabilized the economy. Change is more effective when it's incremental and doesn't overwhelm people. Never appear too perfect warns us that perfection breeds envy. By showing vulnerability or flaws, you become more relatable and less likely to provoke resentment. John F. Kennedy's charm stemmed not from being flawless, but from his ability to own his imperfections, such as his struggles with health and occasional missteps. This humanized him and strengthened his appeal. Perfection alienates. Relatability builds connections. Do not go past the mark you aimed for reminds us that overreaching can lead to downfall. Knowing when to stop consolidates your power and prevents unnecessary risks. Napoleon Bonaparte's ambition drove him to invade Russia, stretching his forces too thin and ultimately leading to his defeat. If he had stopped at consolidating his earlier conquests, his empire might have endured. Ambition is valuable, but overreach is dangerous. Learn to stop at the right moment. The final law, assume formlessness, is about adaptability. By remaining fluid and unpredictable, you can adjust to changing circumstances and avoid being pinned down by enemies. Bruce Lee famously said, "Be like water." This philosophy guided his martial arts techniques, making him adaptable to any opponent or situation, a principle that also applies to strategy and life. Adaptability is the ultimate form of power. Be fluid and ever-changing to stay ahead. We've reached the end of the 48 laws of power. These final laws emphasize adaptability, restraint, and understanding human nature. Power isn't about domination, it's about strategy, influence, and timing. Which of these laws resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more insights on power, strategy, and success.